Last night, the stage of a jubilant rally, now a crime scene, a massive crime scene and an active crime scene. And the site of the first assassination attempt against an American president in more than 40 years. The horrifying images, former President Trump clutching his ear, you see it right there after shots rang out, ducking for cover behind his podium, the Secret Service forming a human shield around him and rushing him off stage. Trump raising his fist in defiance, telling his supporters to fight as the blood streamed down his face.
The gunman taken down by the Secret Service, the shooting leaving one rally-goer dead, another two badly wounded, still hospitalized. President Biden, before the cameras last night, calling the shooting sick as politicians on both sides of the aisle condemn the violence and support the former president. And this morning, what we're learning about the shooter, Tom.
And the latest on the investigation, Kate, right, which is now underway, plus the political fallout just hours before the start of the Republican National Convention, an election resting on a razor's edge and a nation now left reeling. Kate, I want to set the scene for you just behind me. As I mentioned, we were just outside the Trump rally here. This is where it happened last night. Former President Trump speaking underneath that American flag. Just to the right of me here, this barn you see with the door open, that's where law enforcement snipers were. That's where they engaged the alleged assassin. Ultimately, the assassin was killed. He was just, I'd say, a tenth of a mile from where we are. We're going to show you video of that. Up on that roof, we saw investigators this morning, about a half dozen of them. They were up there early in the morning, sort of, looking for evidence, collecting evidence. It seemed like they were moving pieces of machinery as well, and then they eventually came down. But they've been working on this crime scene around the clock, as you can imagine, trying to answer two questions, right? One, why this man wanted to kill former President Trump, what was inside of him, but also, they also want to know how he was able to get so close. And while the identity of that shooter is known this morning, there are still so many questions surrounding exactly how this happened. Overnight, former President Trump walking off his plane hours after surviving this assassination attempt.
They said, take a look at what happened.
Shots ringing out as President Trump ducks down. Secret Service agents rush to his side, forming a protective shield. Other officers in tactical gear, armed with long guns, post up at the front of the stage.
Hold, when you're ready, on you. Ready, move!
Trump's security detail lifting him up from the ground as he raises his fist, his ear and face bloodied, gesturing to the crowd. The Secret Service then moving him into an awaiting SUV. Another angle showing Secret Service agents reacting to the shots. The former president posting on his Truth Social account that he, quote, was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong in that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. This stunning photo from the New York Times capturing what appears to be a bullet on the right-hand side of the image whizzing by the former president's ear.
If he had not moved his head at that nick of time, it could have been a lot worse.
Mr. Trump extending his condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed, and also to the family of another person that was badly injured.
The man beside me suffered a gunshot wound to the head. Was instantly killed.
President Biden, who learned about the tragic events, condemned the shooting.
There's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this.
This video shows the body of the alleged assassin on the roof of a building, his spot just roughly 150 yards from where Mr. Trump was speaking. One witness telling BBC News he saw the shooter.
We noticed the guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us. We're like, hey man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
Early this morning, the FBI identifying the alleged gunman as Thomas Matthew Crooks, 20 years old, of Bethel Park, Pennsylvania.
but why he allegedly wanted to kill former President Trump, still unclear. The FBI now leading an investigation involving the Secret Service, ATF, and state and local law enforcement on the ground in Butler, Pennsylvania. The alleged gunman killing one spectator and gravely injuring two others.
This evening we had what we're calling an assassination attempt against our former president, Donald Trump.
And we have two new pieces of information, two new pieces of reporting I want to share with our viewers right now. The first being that those two victims that were gravely injured in the shooting, we've gotten an update from the medical facility in Pittsburgh where they're being treated. They're still in critical condition this morning, so their situation is still very, very serious. The Secret Service also coming out with a statement. They're saying there's a lot of misinformation out there, and there was an online report that the Trump campaign had asked for additional security, additional Secret Service protection, and they were denied. The Secret Service this morning is saying that is absolutely false. They've actually ramped up their protection of former President Trump, and our reporting from NBC News matches that from about a month ago. With that, I do want to bring in a special guest to join our coverage, Richard Goldinger. He's the district attorney for Butler County. And Richard, thank you for joining us. There's a lot of questions out there. When you see everything that's happening behind you, everything that's happened over the last 12 hours, what goes through your head?
Honestly, it's shocking. It's shocking that this would have happened. I mean, the last attempt on a president was in 1980, I think. And, you know, for it to happen in your own community, you just don't believe it would happen here. So with everything that's going down right now is really surreal.
You walk around this neighborhood, there are Trump flags, Trump placards, people have the lawn signs for president. This is Trump County,
yes.
Trump country, I should say. This is Western PA, right?
Right.
Right on the border of Ohio. Do you think because of that, Secret Service, maybe local law enforcement, didn't take this as seriously as they needed to?
No, I don't think so. I think they did everything they could. You just can't predict somebody that has, a desire to commit the act that was committed. And they did everything they could. I don't know what happened. I don't know how that gentleman got up on that building like that. But I don't know that. I mean, you can second guess, obviously, all day long, but I don't think that there was anything they could have probably done differently because they were prepared.
Even the FBI has said they're surprised about how close this gentleman got. I should say the alleged assassin. It was about 150 yards, 440 feet. It's just down the road from where we are. It is so close when you walk up to it. It is so close. How do you think that happened? I mean, the Secret Service was here. Yes, it was outside the perimeter, but we know that long guns can fire 200 yards.
Right. I think that's the million-dollar question. And I don't really know the answer to that. I would have expected that they would have had that building secured. And I know we had people in that building. So how this occurred, the investigation will determine that.
The alleged shooter who was killed, Thomas Matthew Crooks, 20 years old. We know that he was from a community not far from here. Yeah. What other light can you shed for us about the alleged shooter to our viewers?
So I don't know a whole lot about him. He's not from Butler County. So he would be from south of Pittsburgh. We didn't have any history with him. So
he wasn't somebody who had a criminal record, from what we understand.
Correct. That's
so he wasn't on your radar.
No, he was not.
Talk to me about gun laws, what people can expect that is normal behavior here. If somebody is walking armed, if somebody is walking with a rifle, is that normal here, or is it could people be hunting? Could they? Your laws, walk our viewers through it.
Well, this is a big hunting county. A lot of people hunt here. I'll bet a lot of people own firearms in this county too. It's a pro-gun county, let's say. To see somebody walking with a rifle, you would probably stop and say, what's this individual up to? So that would be unusual to see, but to see somebody with guns here in Butler County would not be surprising.
One of the rally goers, at least a couple of them, have said that they noticed him bear crawling on the roof. They started alerting police. This looks strange. What is? Do you guys see this guy? Local police started running around. What's your understanding of the police officers that were notified and their sort of TikTok moment by moment what they did?
So I did hear that as well, that people were notifying them about that they observed him on that building. And I know they reacted. Law enforcement did as soon as they could. I mean, I don't think they're going to just take a shot at him, if you know what I mean, because they see him up on a building. So,
chaotic situation,
yes.
Unclear what to do.
Correct.
And unusual for this area. If it was local law enforcement that was out there, that would be an unusual situation for them, something they don't see a lot. I'm not talking about, obviously, an assassination, but I guess, an open active shooter situation?
Right. Yeah, we don't see that very often here. We do have a team here in Butler County that's trained to handle that stuff, and they were here. They were activated. But we also don't have a former president coming into our county on a regular basis. So the whole situation was unusual for Butler County.
Is there anything about the incident so far that you've come across that you can share with our viewers that has surprised you?
Well, quite frankly, I'm surprised he was able to get up on that roof and be able to take a shot. I hope the investigation determines how that happened. But that's the most surprising thing to me when we have a former president here, that a guy was able to get, as you say, 150 yards away, able to get up on a roof and be able to take a shot.
Yeah, with a large weapon.
Yes.
Do you know what that business was, what that facility he was on, the roof, what it was?
Yes, it's industrial, basically. They've been here for a long, long time, so...
An industrial warehouse, if you will.
No,
or
not that.
Company?
They do like glass. They make
manufacture glass.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Was the business open at the time? Do you know if people were coming and going, if maybe to watch the rally?
I would suspect no. I don't think they're open 7 days a week. I do know we had some law enforcement in that building, which is even more surprising that he was able to get up there.
Law enforcement has described this man as a lone wolf. Do you know if leads are being pursued, if anyone helped him, if they're talking to his family, what's happening?
Well, I think that's what the investigation's looking at right now. Was he working alone, or was there somebody else involved?
And then do you know anything about the victims that were shot here? A lot of people who came here yesterday were from this community. One person losing their life, 2 others in critical condition now at the Allegheny Medical Center in Pittsburgh. Anything you know about them or what happened there?
I don't have any further information on their condition at this point. I don't know names specifically at this point. I know, there's a female that was injured. A male was killed. I think the other individual injured was a male. So I pray that they survive, and it's unfortunate that we lost a life.
Richard Goldinger, we thank you so much for joining our coverage tonight, and we know it's going to be a busy couple of days and weeks for you and your team.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns was reporting from the rally yesterday. She was just on the other side of those barns you see behind me, watching the president's speech. She has talked about her experience numerous times, but now is the first time I'm getting a chance to talk to her about what she's seen. Dasha, first, good morning. I know you've told the story a couple times now. You've sort of set the scene of what you saw. When you were watching it in real time, did you understand, did you register what was happening?
No, I mean, Tom, like so many people that we talked to in the aftermath, initially we thought it was fireworks. You know, the former president's rallies sometimes have pyrotechnics, sometimes smoke, sometimes some sort of fireworks and flares. So that was my initial thinking. I mean, you never jump first to the conclusion that this was an act of political violence, but it was when those pops kept going and the former president stopped talking that it felt like, oh, wait, this is not something that was expected. This could potentially be dangerous. So it went from a sort of initial confusion and chaos to a bit of adrenaline and fear starting to settle in. My producer Bianca and I were just coming off of the press risers, walking down the stairs when those initial sounds that are now sort of keep echoing through my mind went off. And we took cover behind some stage equipment, big boxes of stage equipment, once we realized this could be something dangerous. Although, Tom, I'll tell you, even as I was taking cover, I was thinking this is just a precaution. We're just doing this to be safe. We're going to come up and realize it was fireworks or something not what we ultimately realized was the reality of political violence here.
Dasha, I want you to explain to our viewers, if you can. Yeah, I want you to explain to our viewers, if you can, just how close the alleged assassin was, because it shocked me this morning when we came out to the scene. And again, former President Trump was speaking under that American flag. We drove, I'd say, 10 seconds in this direction, 10, 20 seconds in this direction. And there's a road that takes you right to that business we were just talking about, the glass factory, where the alleged assassin got on the roof there. It shocked me how close it was and how easy it was to get there. When you finally learned of where he was and where the president was, did it surprise you?
It did and it didn't, Tom. So here's what I'll tell you. I've been to dozens of Trump rallies, right? The security measures in place are intense. Everyone that goes inside of one of these events, they get screened thoroughly. You go through mags, whether you're a member of the public, a member of the press, or even an elected official. They go through every one of your bags, every small bag. They look through your wallet. I mean, it is a thorough search. The problem is this was an outdoor venue. He often does rallies in outdoor venues. But once we learned that it was outside of the perimeter, that's when I wasn't surprised. I was surprised when I was thinking, how could somebody possibly get through with all of these levels of security? How could somebody get through? And then thinking about, wait a minute, behind the former president, behind the audience, it was open space. And this is a rural county. There are rolling hills, cows, a lot of open spaces. And so as soon as I realized it was outside of the perimeter, it didn't shock me. Although what was surprising was that that area was unprotected, wasn't searched, wasn't being guarded, that's something that wasn't taken into account. Of course, we'll wait for the investigation to reveal to us why exactly that happened.
You know, Dasha, we are focusing so much on former President Trump, as we should, right? I think it's fair to say he came inches, if not centimeters, to maybe death. Somebody did lose their life here, right? Somebody was killed at a political rally in the United States for simply attending. And then you have two others in critical condition. I know you spoke to some people, and you spoke to an eyewitness in general that we saw in my report there, who saw the person next to him die. I can't even imagine what that man went through.
No, so many of the people I talked to are in shock. Understandably, they talked also about the children that were at the rally. There are often kids at these events. People bring their whole families to these. The vibe of a Trump rally is often kind of like a concert or a festival. It's not just going to see a politician. It's seeing your friends and family, people in the area. It's going to the tents with the merchandise and swag and buying food. There are food trucks. And so it's kind of a celebratory atmosphere. So people went in with that mood, with that idea in mind. Many people you'll talk to at Trump rallies, Tom, as you know, have been to multiple rallies. This is a thing that they do whenever the former president is anywhere near their hometowns. And so to go from that jovial atmosphere, excited to see someone you're planning to vote for, to suddenly witnessing a historic and devastating event. And some of the people I talked to, as you mentioned, were right there. They saw the former president get hit in the ear, but they also saw one gentleman I spoke to saw a man get killed, dying on impact. Another family I spoke to saw people get injured. They didn't know whether or not they were going to be okay. A mother told me that she knew her son was scared because he grabbed her hand. He hadn't done that since he was a little child. I mean, these are memories that will be seared into people's minds. And of course, so many people thinking about not just the former president, but the families of the man who was killed and those who are currently in critical condition. There is just no way to describe what it's like to so quickly have your entire world change. It's interesting, Tom. Some people I talked to were shocked that this happened, never thought it could happen. Others, though, told me, look, we are living in a polarized time. And every time I go to a political event, I think, could something happen here? Tom?
Yeah, Dasha, before you go, we know the former president is in New Jersey. At least that is our latest reporting, we believe. Walk us through what happens next. The Republican National Convention kicks off tomorrow, obviously with added security. What else, does anything else change for the Republican National Convention and or the president's schedule?
Well, the sources we've been talking to say in practice, it's going to move forward as planned, with the exception of security. That is certainly going to change. But in spirit, that is what's going to be very different here. There is no way that this will not be impacting just about every aspect of the messaging, of the tone and tenor and the mood of this convention. This is something that everyone had been anticipating, particularly because we've been awaiting that crucial vice presidential choice from the former president. We're being told that that's also not changing. But again, emotions, security, everything heightened after this unbelievable and still unreal event, Tom.
Dasha Burns for us. Dasha, phenomenal reporting over the last day. We appreciate all of it. I want to send it back to New York and my friend Kate Snow, who's anchoring from there. Kate?
Yeah, Tom, let's bring in NBC News law enforcement and intelligence correspondent Tom Winter, who's here. He's been talking with law enforcement sources all night long. Tom, I know we just got new information about the kind of weapon that the shooter used. 3 senior law enforcement officials telling NBC News it was a semi-automatic rifle. Talk about the significance of that.
That's right, Kate. So one of the things that's been put out there is that this is an AR-15 style rifle. I think a lot of times people use that as a catch-all for what we are describing it as, based on 3 law enforcement officials we've spoken to, as a semi-automatic rifle. It means that it will chamber the next round automatically, and then it still needs to, the trigger still needs to be pulled in order to fire. So it's not automatic where you just pull the trigger back and round after round comes out. You have to pull the trigger each individual time that you want to fire around, but it is high-powered. It has the capability potentially to cover that distance. It appears to have a longer barrel, perhaps, than most AR-15s, which would help with that. But bottom line, you're looking at these images. I mean, they're stunning to look at. This individual came exceptionally close to killing the former president of the United States and the Republican nominee in just several days' time. As far as the person who is responsible for this shooting, they've been identified as Thomas Matthew Crooks, born in September of 2003 from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. You know, we've dug through the records in Pennsylvania. They have a robust court system and website. We find no criminal history, no history of any lawsuits. Sometimes, Kate, you and I have talked about this before on other mass shootings or serious events, certainly not an attempted assassination, but we look at lawsuits to see if somebody has a particular axe to grind against an individual or individuals. We can't see that as you're looking at on screen. Registered, according to Pennsylvania records, as a registered Republican, but did donate $15 to a pro-democratic cause. So right now, it's very unclear, in the words of one senior law enforcement official, what the motive might be here. For a 20-year-old male in America, this individual has a very small social media footprint, so that's going to make it more difficult. And I think we have to keep an open mind, because that's what law enforcement is doing at this point, as to what the motive might be.
Yeah, and you were telling me, sorry, Tom, we were in the hallway talking. You were telling me we've not heard from the family of this person. We've not heard from any friends. We really don't have a lot of information yet.
That's exactly right. The family home is cordoned off by law enforcement. There's a robust law enforcement presence in that neighborhood. You can't even get close to it. So what the family members might be saying, what they're talking about, we just don't yet know. Have they found any hard drives or journals at home that can help provide them with the motive? You know, Kate, that remains unclear at this hour as well.
We have video this morning, Tom. If people perhaps haven't seen this yet, it does show the body of the possible shooter on the roof of that nearby building we keep talking about. Our video verification team has that building about 300 yards from where Mr. Trump was speaking. Do police have any further idea? We just talked about it with the district attorney. Tom was speaking with the district attorney about this. How on earth a person was able to get to that position right before this rally?
100%, that's already being looked at and something that people are focusing on. When you look at this incident and how close it was, and of course, this is a Google Earth image that was taken at a moment in time, so we don't see the infrastructure for the Trump rally, the stands, what the Secret Service has set up. They do set up a perimeter. You have to go through magnetometers or be wanded to make sure you're not bringing a gun into any particular rally. This goes for Trump or Biden or anybody else. They receives this level of protection. But to your point, this individual almost directly off to the right of where Trump was speaking, and you're looking at law enforcement who's been up on that the roof of that building this morning, that's going to be an enormous question as to how this person wasn't seen. But also, as I've seen it, and I know, Kate, you've covered a number of these high-profile political events as well, you know, normally you would see some sort of uniformed police presence. So the Secret Service can't be everywhere. They have a limited amount of agents. They have to focus on the protectee, in this case, Donald Trump. But they do engage with the Pennsylvania State Police, who was definitely there yesterday, local law enforcement, to set up a broader perimeter and to have a uniform presence. And so it's surprising to me, at least based on initial accounts and based on initial video that we've seen, that there didn't appear to be some sort of a uniform presence there who could get on the radio and say, hey, we got a guy climbing up on a roof. Obviously, the counter sniper spotted him at some point. That's why he's deceased. deceased. But you're looking there at how close, and you saw the map, and just how close this was.
Well, and Tom, you know, overnight it's gotten a lot of play. There was one eyewitness who spoke out and said, I did see this man. I saw someone with a rifle, and I tried to flag, he said, local law enforcement who were nearby. We don't know exactly what that looked like, but is anyone in your world, your sources, anyone saying perhaps there weren't enough personnel on site yesterday?
I think nobody wants to jump to those type of conclusions until they know precisely what the plan was and what might have happened. But I'll say this: I know that both from the press conference last night involving the FBI and the Pennsylvania State Police, and folks that we've spoken with today, that is something that is absolutely being looked at. What was the plan? Was it the right plan? Clearly not, because, you know, for the Secret Service, they have to be right all the time. The person who would want to try to commit an attempted assassination only has to be right once. And so for them, they have to go back and look at this. And obviously, I mean, we've been talking about this campaign for so long between Trump and Biden, and we know what the discussion has been in for the last several weeks in this country about the current president and what might happen with him in this race. And we know that Trump obviously has the RNC starting this week. These two are going to have to traverse the country, or whoever is going to be the Democratic nominee is going to have to traverse the country, campaign, talk to people, be out there and engaged with the public in a scenario where you've just had an attempted assassination of one of the candidates. Yeah. The stakes couldn't be higher for the Secret Service at a time where law enforcement, their numbers and their manpower is down. So there's just challenges abroad here. This has completely changed the game, no doubt about it. And so I think a lot of these outdoor rallies, which are frequently used by candidates across the country, are going to be given a hard examination here going forward.
Yeah, make it a second look now. Tom Winter, I appreciate it so much. Thank you. I'll let you go back to reporting. I want to continue the conversation, though, with Christopher O'Leary. He's the former director of hostage recovery for the United States government. He's the senior vice president for global operations of the Soufan Group. Good to see you. Thank you for being with us on a difficult morning. Can we start off? I'd like to watch what happened yesterday from beginning to end, and then we can talk about it on the other side.
If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Move to spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Up. Move. Go.
Up. Hawkeye's here.
Hawkeye's here. Move it to the spare.
Spare, get ready. Spare, get ready.
We ready?
Down.
Are we good? Shooters down. Shooters down. Are we good to move?
Shooters down. We're good to move.
We're clear.
We're clear.
Let's move.
We're clear. Let me get my shoes. Let me get my shoes.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir.
Hold that in your head. It's bloody.
So we got to move to the bus. Let me get my shoes.
Okay, my shoes down.
Watch out.
There's a lot to process there. I wonder, as you watch that, can you tell us what you see and what jumps out to you?
Well, Kate, there's a couple of things. Number one, I'm not shocked that the event happened. Those of us who studied terrorism and political violence somewhat expected some level of violence at some point as we go into this fall or post-election. So I think the conditions were right for this. What happened, you're looking at the video on stage, what the Secret Service did reacting was spot on, everything they've done, and they've been complimented for that. You see their close protection team immediately collapse on the president. They keep him behind cover. There's likely a ballistic curtain in front of him. They're assessing him on ground on the extent of the injuries. All the Secret Service agents have medical training for trauma. So they're taking a look at him. You see the counter-assault team there, the SWAT team individuals. They take up a position. They're looking for additional threats, while the counter-sniper team engages and puts down the assassin or attempted assassin. So they've done everything right. The issues about, how did you get within 150 yards, that is very concerning. That should never have happened.
Yeah.
My assumption would be that, that was left to be covered by state and local law enforcement, and there was a breakdown and somebody was able to get in there. But everything else the Secret Service did to react to it is spot on. They are the premier organization in the world for protective security operations. They are limited in manpower, though, so they have to rely on state and local law enforcement and other federal agencies to carry out these massive undertakings. And as you're going into the convention in Milwaukee, they have a large majority of their personnel out there as well.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. I was talking about it. I don't know if you heard the conversation prior to you with Tom Winter, our correspondent, about this idea that someone was able to scale and climb onto a roof with a loaded weapon. It's just sort of unfathomable. How does the investigation now, I guess twofold, what are they doing to try to figure out more about who did the suspect, and what are they doing to figure out what went wrong?
Well, so the FBI surged resources up there. So there's 56 field offices in the FBI, Pittsburgh being one of them, but it doesn't have all of the tools and personnel that it needs for such a monumental investigation. So FBI headquarters in Quantico have surged in an immense amount of resources up there. That includes a critical incident response group, which will have the behavioral analysis unit in it, the profilers, BAU as we call it, the evidence response teams, the laboratory division for ballistics, for DNA, you name it, for computer forensics. They have every tool up there. So they're doing searches of the crime scene. Yeah. They're doing searches of the shooter's house, and they're trying to pick apart his life. There's also agents and analysts coming up there. They will interview everybody that he knows. They'll build a pattern of life for how he's conducted himself the last few weeks. And they'll want to find out, is he in direct association with anybody? Was he motivated by anybody? Was he directed by anybody? Or has he inspired anybody else? So we want to look at that. Mm-hmm. What is his ideology? Does he have a mental illness and this, just mobilized him towards violence? Or is there something else? Was this actually a deliberate act of political violence and he's part of a group or following a certain ideology like accelerationism or something?
Yeah, we're months away from the election right now. There will be more rallies. There will be more events, maybe not right away, but there will be. How does this change everything for how the Secret Service makes sure both President Trump and President Biden are protected?
So it won't change much, actually. It's unfortunately a wake-up call. Often in failures like this, you double down on what you've been doing. They will do an after action. They'll try to look at their procedures. Obviously, they're going to change things like, a building that had a line of sight 150 yards away. That never should have happened. And it will say the rifle, if it's confirmed, he's carrying an AR-15 style rifle. The range for that is to hit a man-sized target is 500 yards. For even a basically trained individual to carry out a shot from 150 yards is not difficult. And the round itself is traveling about 3,100 feet per second. So by the time he shoots, people aren't hearing that until the bullet's already passed President Trump and the other victims, unfortunately, in the crowd. The Secret Service will look at everything they're doing. They'll bring in additional resources from federal and state agencies. And they'll start looking at the protective intelligence more closely. They have an excellent protective intelligence division that tries to identify any high threat individual before they go to a location. So, are there people who are looking to travel from outside of the area to come to this event? Are there people who are of concern inside? And they work closely with the FBI, our Joint Terrorism Task Force, to try to identify those people for everywhere they go.
Christopher O'Leary, great to have you with us this morning. Thank you.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.